So Corey Holcomb and Donnell Rawlings have been having a back and forth online because of some things that Corey said about Dave Chappelle. I got a video here from Forgotten Kings TV, and he does a good job of setting up the backstory. So I'm going to let him do that, and then I'm going to come back and talk about it.
They're saying Dave Chappelle isn't that funny.
The only person who said something was Faison Love about him being a little overrated. Now, like I said, in movies, television, Dave Chappelle is elite. Elite. But if you go watch Dave Chappelle do stand-up, it was an old man at the Improv just stood up while Dave Chappelle was on stage, and he said, Dave, are you going to crack some jokes? If I'm lying, I'm done. Yeah. D-Ray that was down there. I know D-Ray, y'all don't want no parts of this. You don't want to burn bridges with the mighty Dave Chappelle. I don't want to burn bridges with the mighty Dave Chappelle. But fuck that. My nuts too big. I watch Dave Chappelle finna go up. I'll be like, well, shit, let me get the fuck out of here. Because he is not about to deliver. He's about to talk to the crowd like the big homie. You know how the big homie be talking and don't nobody say nothing? Everybody just be like, yeah. You right. Yeah. Then I be like, man, this nigga been bombing for about 2 hours up there.
Man.
Smoking a square with a leotard on.
Yo, what's up? This bruh man from the fifth floor, and you tuned in to Forgotten Kings TV.
Let's talk about it, y'all. Moments ago, comedian Donnell Rawlings reacts to Dave Chappelle winning his third comedy album Grammy in a row. That's right, y'all. That's 3 comedy album Grammys in a row, 6 overall Grammys for Dave Chappelle. Of course, he wasn't in the building this evening to accept his award. However, this is interesting, right? Because last week, Ari Spears called out Corey Holcomb after seeing a resurfaced clip of Corey Holcomb calling Dave Chappelle's stand-up skills overrated. Okay, so, of course, it's only right, Donnell Rawlings, right, being team Dave Chappelle. And we all remember Donnell Rawlings had his back and forth with Corey Holcomb last year. Well, moments ago, he made a post via IG pretty much sending a shot at Corey while at the same time reacting to the news of Dave Chappelle winning his third comedy album Grammy in a row. Now again, for those who missed what Donnell said in his post, it reads, sometimes you gotta pop up and show a nigga. Congrats to my brother Dave Chappelle, 6th Grammy win. Laughing emoji. Hashtag mild Grammy. All right, now again, that was Donnell Rawlings reacting to Dave Chappelle winning his 6th Grammy. All right, now if you see in the post, the caption reads, mild Grammy. Where did that come from? Remember, last year, Corey Holcomb and Donnell Rawlings, they went viral after they had their, heated exchange at the Laugh Factory. If you remember, Corey Holcomb called Donnell Rawlings a mild comedian. You get what I mean? So this has been going on for quite some time now, right? And remember last week, a lot of people in the comments, like I said, they just wasn't feeling Corey Holcomb's take on Dave Chappelle not being elite on that stage. Okay, it's one thing if that's not for you, right? His style of comedy, hey, might not be for you, right? But to say that the man bombs on stage and he's overrated, right? Pretty much saying the man is mid on the stage, it's not honest. Come on. Right? Again, comedians bomb all the time, right? I'm pretty sure Corey has bombed. All of the comedians, they have their moments. It is what it is. But to say that this man is greater on the big screen and in television in comparison to that stage, to me, that was a crazy take, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. When's the last time we seen Dave Chappelle on the big screen? Like, ever since he made his official comeback, it's been stand-up comedy. You get what I mean? He's had his Netflix specials, but overall, that's it. The brand sells itself. You go to the shows, the merch is damn near piling to the ceiling. I mean, listen, and now he's just won his 6th Grammy. I mean, hey, like I said, it's one thing if that style of comedy isn't for you. Again, comedy is subjective. I understand that, right? One would argue the same when it comes to Corey Holcomb. But to say that this man isn't elite on that stage when he's one of one, when it comes to the brand of Dave Chappelle, listen, that's the part where I was like, all right, Corey, you ain't being genuine.
So you heard what he had to say on the subject. And if you want to watch his entire video, then you can go to Forgotten Kings TV 2.0 and watch the entire video there. So before I dive into my take on this whole situation, let me start out by saying this. I think the comedy specials that Dave Chappelle has put out over the last several years have been some of the funniest comedy specials that I've seen from any comedian. And I think these specials give him the right to be in the conversation as one of the greatest comedians of all time. But with that being said, I do understand what Corey is talking about, because he's not talking about the moments when comedians are recording for their big specials. He's talking about those moments when the cameras aren't necessarily there and it's just a comedian in a room with the audience full of people watching. And at some point when the comedian stops talking, the audience is supposed to laugh. And so back in 2013, Dave Chappelle came to Chicago as a part of the Funny or Die tour. And 1 week later, Corey Holcomb was headlining the Chicago theater. And I actually saw both of them back to back. And so when Dave did his special, one of the biggest jokes that he was telling at the time for us was about how he had bombed in Hartford, Connecticut the show before. But even with that being said, I found his set and his comedy funny. But because he's a storyteller, there were a couple stories that he told and they just weren't really that funny. And so they didn't really get, laughs from the crowd like that. And so 1 week later, I go to see Corey Holcomb, and Corey tells the completely different style of jokes than Dave. He tells very fucked up jokes. But with that being said, Corey had everybody laughing from the time he took the stage to the time that he left the stage. And I once heard Cat Williams say that the way comedians measure other comedians is by how many laughs you get during your set. And so by the end of the night, it wasn't even a competition as to who got more laughs, whether it was Dave or Corey. It was Corey, because Corey tells typical jokes where it's a premise, a setup, and a punchline. And if it doesn't hit, then you can just move on to the next joke. And you probably got about 30 of those set up for a show. So by the end of the night, if you had 30 jokes and 25 of them hit, you can call that a success. With Dave Chappelle, he came on stage, he had 4 stories to tell. 2 of them were good and 2 of them were bad. And so when Dave came back to Chicago the next year, and it was time for my wife and I to start, considering what comedy shows we wanted to go to, I wanted to see the price of the Dave Chappelle tickets before I just bought the tickets. And when I saw the price of the tickets and they were going for like $200 to $300, to be honest with you, I was like, he wasn't that funny the last time I saw him for me to spend that much money on him. So I don't think he's overrated in the sense of he's not funny and he doesn't deserve the accomplishments that he has. But I understand what Corey is saying, where if you pick the wrong night to see Dave Chappelle, he won't be funny. Because a lot of these comedians, when they go on tour, especially when they're going on tour for like a Netflix special, they're working out the kinks of their jokes. So to give you 2 examples, I saw Chris Rock live, and the jokes that he did ended up going for his tambourine special. And it was okay. It was pretty funny. Chris Rock has been funnier. It's not the funniest I've ever seen him. But when he was here in Chicago, the way he told some of the jokes versus the way that they actually were by the time it hit Netflix, he had 30 or 40 cities to work out all the different kinks in the jokes to get it perfect by the time he went to go do his Netflix special. Another example is Kings of Comedy. They say the initial lineup for Kings of Comedy had Steve Harvey going last, and Steve Harvey was not rocking the building like that. So what they did was they chopped up Steve's set and made him the MC, and then they made Bernie Mac go last, and that's the way they recorded the special. So now if you bought tickets to go see the Kings of Comedy tour and you caught the lineup where Steve Harvey was going last, then that comedy show was okay for you. But if you caught the comedy shows where Bernie Mac was going last, then that comedy show was probably off the hook for you. And I think that's what Corey's talking about when he says that Dave Chappelle is not always funny. And so if Dave is prepping to shoot a special, then by the time he gets to the special, he's worked all of that out of his joke and he knows how to deliver it. But for those of us who saw him while he was working the joke out, it might not have been that funny. So overall, I don't think Dave Chappelle is overrated. I think he's earned everything that he's earned. I do think he's one of the funniest people that's out there. But with that being said, on any given night, if you walk into a room and Dave Chappelle is the comedian, because his style is storytelling and he's just shooting from the hip a lot of times, it's not guaranteed to be funny. And that's cool, but it also is what it is too. And so I saw a lot of people in the comment section talking about, you know, Dave Chappelle is an intellectual comedian and Corey Holcomb is lowbrow, and, you know, don't nobody remember no Corey Holcomb jokes, and the type of people who laugh at Dave Chappelle jokes don't laugh at Corey Holcomb jokes. Yo, comedy is comedy. I find a wide range of people funny, and I've seen over 15 comedians live. And the reality is that your comedy special is why I'm coming to see you, but the impression that you leave on me is the one that I got from actually coming to see you. And when I went to go see Dave Chappelle, I was gassed up. I thought he was going to be the best comedian that I ever saw. And to be honest with you, he probably like fourth on my list, which ain't bad. But, you know, all things considered, Eddie Griffin was a lot funnier in the actual building watching him tell jokes than Dave Chappelle was. Charlie Murphy was another person who I found to be funnier than Dave Chappelle was when I saw him live. So I'm not saying that Dave ain't funny. I'm not saying he don't deserve his Grammys and his Netflix specials. And I'm also not saying that he's not probably the actual king of comedy as we are concerned right now. But with that being said, just be careful what night you go to see him on. But that's it for this video. As always, make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can get the alert when future content is posted. I'm your man, D Cannon. This is The Dust Up, and I'm out.